Hey there. Welcome to your personalized deep dive into Chapter 3 of the Bhagavad-Gītā.
Oh, this is going to be good.
It is, right? We're tackling karma yoga today, basically, the path of selfless action.
One of my favorites.
You specifically wanted to unpack some excerpts from this chapter, so let's get right to it.
Let's do it.
Okay, picture this. The battlefield of Kurukshetra. Our main man, Arjuna, is facing, like, a full-blown moral crisis. He has to fight his own family.
Heavy stuff.
No kidding. Talk about a tough spot. It's something we can all relate to, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That feeling of being torn, those tough choices. It's a timeless dilemma. Arjuna's really wrestling with, the weight of his duty, but then also this huge emotional turmoil.
Yeah, exactly. And remember how in Chapter 2 we learned about Buddhi Yoga? That's like the yoga of the intellect, right?
Yeah, using your mind to navigate life's challenges, cultivating that clear seeing.
Right, exactly. But even with that knowledge, Arjuna's still struggling. So in verse 3.1, he asks Krishna, if wisdom is considered greater, then why should I fight this terrible war? Like, shouldn't I just head for the hills and call it a day?
It's a common misconception about spiritual life, People think it means checking out, becoming passive, but Krishna's about to drop some serious wisdom about engaged action.
Okay, I'm hooked. So what's Krishna say?
Well, Krishna, being the ultimate guide, he doesn't let Arjuna off easy. In verse 3.3, he lays out two paths to self-realization.
Two paths.
Yeah, there's Jnana Yoga, which is like the path of knowledge, philosophical inquiry, and then there's Karma Yoga, the path of selfless action. It's about finding that sweet spot.
Two paths. See, this is where I always get tripped up. Is it one or the other? How do those two even work together?
I hear you. It's like choosing between two delicious desserts. Why not have both, right? But seriously, they're not mutually exclusive. It's more about finding what resonates.
Okay, so there's hope for us yet. But in verse 3.4, Krishna says, just ditching our work isn't the answer. So it's not about becoming passive, running away from responsibility.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting. Krishna's not saying go become a hermit. It's about our relationship to action, to our work, responsibilities, everything.
So an internal shift, not just external.
You got it. He makes this super clear in verse 3.5, where he says everyone's constantly acting, even for a moment. It's in our nature to do stuff. The question is how? Ego-driven or with higher purpose?
Powerful distinction. Not a passive observer in our own lives.
Yeah.
So if ditching action isn't it, what is?
Well, in verse 3.6, Krishna says, trying to suppress desires while dwelling on them, that's self-deception, like holding your breath while thinking about air.
Ooh, that's so true. We've all been there.
Right. Exhausting. True freedom, as Krishna points out, comes from understanding and transcending those desires, not just white-knuckling it.
So not repression, but deeper understanding.
Yes. Moving from reactivity to conscious choice. And that's where yajna comes in. But we'll save that for next time. And that's where yajna comes in.
Okay, yeah, yajna. Big one. Break that down for us.
Absolutely. So in ancient times, yajnas, they were like rituals, offerings to the divine, But Krishna's giving it this broader meaning. He's saying all our actions, when done right, they can be a yajna, an offering to something bigger.
So like our jobs, our everyday stuff, infused with purpose. Not just for us.
You got it. That internal shift. Seeing it all as part of this, cosmic dance, not just a means to an end, And that's how we embody karma yoga.
We're not just going through the motions, then we're really putting our heart into it.
Exactly. And that's where dharma comes into play. Your right action, your unique role.
Ah, dharma. Another one of those words I always hear, but...
Don't worry. People have pondered it for ages. Think of it like this. The universe is this huge play, and we each have a role. Dharma is about understanding and playing your part the best you can.
So not being someone we're not, stepping into our own thing, yeah.
Exactly. And when we align our actions with our dharma, work takes on a whole new meaning, not just for us, but something way bigger.
Okay, how does this tie back to yajna then, this making our actions an offering idea?
Great question. Verse 3.7, Krishna says, the one who controls their senses, free from attachment, acts with Krishna consciousness, is truly superior. It's dedicating our actions to that higher purpose, the divine.
So engaged, but not attached. Kind of like how you were saying you don't like being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Choosing how we respond.
Exactly. That inner space, freedom from just reacting. And when we act from there, our actions, they become that yajna, a selfless offering.
This reminds me, there's that verse 3.8 where Krishna talks about prescribed duty. Always makes me think, rigid rules, not very free and intentional sounding.
I hear you. Prescribed can be kind of intense, but it's not like blindly following something external. It's more about what are your unique abilities, your talents, your place.
Aligning with who we are.
Exactly. And that even simple stuff done with that awareness becomes yajna. You mentioned valuing quick but thorough understanding. This is it. Krishna's giving us the framework to find meaning in every action, no matter how small.
Not just the grand gestures, though.
Nope. It's about transforming the mundane into the sacred.
Okay, that's really resonating. Speaking of sacred, verse 3 gets me fired up. This idea, creation itself, is all part of yajna.
Yeah.
Like we all have a role in this massive cosmic dance.
Beautiful metaphor, right? Creation itself, a yajna, this constant offering, this back and forth between the divine and, well, everyone.
And then verses 3.12, he talks about humans and demigods, right?
Yeah, and yajna gets even more interesting here. So in the old Vedic ways, yajnas, they often had offerings to these deities, these demigods. They were seen as like maintaining creation.
Okay, for those who don't know a ton about Hinduism, demigods are.
Think of them like powerful beings overseeing different parts of nature. Surya, the sun god, Chandra, the moon, Indra, king of the gods, he's all about rain. Agni, the fire god, he's transformation. Just examples, but you see, everything's connected.
So, like in other traditions, there's these beings, forces beyond what we can see.
Exactly. We're part of something way bigger.
Okay, back to yajna and these demigods.
Right. So Krishna is explaining, yajnas, they're essential for keeping things in balance, this universal harmony. It's a flow between humans and the divine. We offer our actions, devotion, gratitude, and in return, the demigods, they keep the world going.
I'm with you.
But this is key. Verse 3.12, Krishna says this exchange has got to be balanced. Taking without giving, that messes things up. You reap what you sow, you know.
Finding that balance, right giving back.
Yeah.
It's amazing how this ancient stuff is so relevant now.
Absolutely. And this is where it gets really interesting, especially for you. Loving those aha moments, think about it. Reciprocity, our modern lives, consumerism everywhere taking over giving.
It's true. Buy.
Yeah.
But nobody says, hey, give back. Like we're just taking.
Exactly. And that imbalance, like Krishna says, it has consequences. Messes with the harmony inside out. So how do we apply this? Mindless consuming to mindful contribution. Something to ponder, right?
Totally. Big questions. But hey, nobody said this is going to be easy. And speaking of journeys, we're about to get into some really interesting stuff here. Food, sin, liberation.
Now we're talking. This is where it gets real practical.
Food, sin, liberation. Okay, that's a lot to unpack. Where do we even start?
Let's dive into verse 3.13. Krishna talks about devotees being freed from sin because they eat food offered to Krishna. We call that prasadam.
Prasadam, right. It's like spiritually offered food. But how does that work? Is it the food itself or?
Good question. Gets to the heart of karma yoga here. It's not like food magically erases some cosmic to-do list, right? It's about the consciousness we bring to it. Gratitude, recognizing it as a gift. Even eating becomes devotion.
So it's mindful awareness, again, but with food this time.
Exactly, and it goes beyond food. Verse 3.14, Krishna describes this whole cycle, food, rain, sacrifice, duty, all connected. Our actions have ripple effects, you know? Bigger picture.
We are what we eat, but like on a whole other level.
Totally. And that interconnectedness goes even deeper. Verse 3.15, Krishna says even the Vedas, those ancient scriptures, they originated from the Supreme.
Right. Like this whole system, it's all coming from somewhere beyond us.
It's huge. Challenges our ego that I'm the doer thing we all have.
That I'm in control, illusion.
Exactly. Verse 3.27, Krishna's like, hey, that's not really how it works.
Humbling, for sure. And you know how I'm all about gaining knowledge quickly but thoroughly. Letting go of that need to control everything could be huge.
It's huge. Surrendering to something bigger. Not becoming passive, but acting with intention, but not freaking out over the results.
Effort and surrender.
Nailed it. Which leads us to another verse that always gets me, 3.22. Krishna says he has no need to act, yet he does. Why would he, being perfect already?
Right. If it ain't broke.
The thing is, he's acting as our example, verse 3.23.
Do as I do.
Exactly. But, and he's clear about this, we can't copy him exactly. We've got our own path, our dharma.
Like that verse 3.24, with Shiva drinking poison, just because he can.
Right. We each have our capacity. Trying to be someone else just leads to frustration.
Yeah.
Key is act within our own sphere, make the best choices we can with what we've got.
Not about comparing or being perfect then.
Nope. And that's where faith comes in, like he emphasizes in 3.31.
Yeah.
Even when we mess up, it's about sincerely striving.
Showing up, even when we're figuring it out as we go.
Yes. And this leads to one of my favorite verses, 3.35. Krishna says it's better to follow your path imperfectly than someone else's perfectly.
Love that. Permission to be ourselves, mistakes and all.
Right. And remember, we've just scratched the surface here. This is lifetime stuff, the Gita.
Lots to chew on.